It is common sense to pick the soft persimmon first, and Thanos is no exception. When Thanos launched an all-out attack, Hong Kong Holy Place and London Holy Place fell after only half an hour before the Avengers could react. Definitely, if Thor rushed to the first time, he would definitely be able to clear the siege, but he still chose to stay behind. To guard the 3 holy places at the same time, one must be incompetent in duplication. It is difficult to take care of everything, and it will also disperse the power of the Avengers. On the contrary, the number of Thanos' troops is there. Even if a large number of people die in space, it is still a terrifying base. The holy place was destroyed, and Kamar Taj immediately realized that this was the harbinger of Dormammu's coming. Holy Place, New York, will be the last line of defense, and the Avengers are ready. Thanos also knows that the remaining 4 infinite gems are all in the hands of Thor, and Thor is sitting in Holy Place, New York. New York, which is plagued by disasters in the world, has once again become a place where storms and clouds gather. Speaking of it, New York in this world is really unlucky. After so many wars, it was demolished and rebuilt, and then demolished and rebuilt. After today, I'm afraid the city needs to be overthrown and restarted. Steve, who has become the president, forcibly passed a decision in spite of Russia's opposition, to evacuate the people of New York. During this process, the mayor of New York, Kim, even used a lot of secret means to forcibly execute all of this. War is imminent. In the clear sky, a huge amount of meteor fell from the sky, broke into the atmosphere and turned into a fireball, roaring and falling in the direction of Holy Place. This is Thanos' landing ship. New York doesn't have a protective shield like Wakanda. It is unrealistic to expect Thanos to land outside the battlefield honestly. An earth-shattering dragon chant sounded, and the Black Dragon Princess transformed into a dragon and rushed straight to the sky, took a deep breath, and sprayed a hot dragon's breath on the landing ship. The landing ship slowly collapsed in the extreme high temperature. Before she could be proud, several huge fireballs fell down immediately. It would take a long time for the Black Dragon Princess to solve one of them, and she couldn't stop so many. Through the skylight inside the holy place, Thor sneered as he watched the Zarita battleship that was about to land, and announced loudly, "In my field of vision, don't even think about any battleship appearing." He stretched out his hand, and Stormbreaker appeared in his hand. Outside the holy place, the Avengers who were facing the enemy saw a battle axe soaring into the sky like lightning, piercing through the nearest battleship in an instant, and then spinning towards the next battleship without losing momentum. Boom. Boom, boom. In front of Stormbreaker, the so-called strong ship and sharp gun are like paper, and they will collapse at the touch of a touch. At this time, a huge force of fighter bombers emerged from the donut spaceship and swooped down. Their task is to cover the landing of the landing ship. Boom. A thunderbolt tens of meters thick pierced Changlong, almost turning the entire sky purple. The huge thunderbolt split into countless arm-thick thunderbolts, which exploded in midair covering the entire fighter force. Those elite flight members didn't even have time to let out a scream, and they were reduced to ashes. Thor yelled. "I said, no flying in New York today." High in the sky, Thanos twitched the corners of his mouth when he saw this seemingly omnipotent battle axe. He had no choice but to give up playing the trick of falling from the sky, and honestly landed the battleship outside the city, and then confronted the Avengers head-on. Under normal circumstances, he would actually choose a salvo of naval guns as a cover, but now Holy Place No. 2 has not been repaired. This is forced to fight. The weapon system is still paralyzed, and can only be used as an air carrier. Bang. There was a loud noise, and finally a landing ship plunged into the ground outside the city. The hatch opened slowly, and countless ferocious monsters rushed out of the battleship. After completing the procedures, they rushed towards the holy place in the city like a tide. The Vanguard, another huge force under Thanos besides the Kiritas. Although not known for their individual combat power, they have a terrifying number and a fearless character of, which is enough to overwhelm any opponent with crowd tactics. And these are the targets that other heroes need to prevent. Stark and Rhodes immediately flew up, driving the steel armor and releasing countless missiles to wash the ground, killing a large number of vanguards. The one in front fell down, and the one behind immediately made up for it, as if there would never be. In the rear, countless huge amounts of portals slowly appeared, and a group of fully armed Wakanda warriors walked out of them, holding vibranium spears, and slaying in the direction of the vanguard. Must win. Must win. A New York war broke out on a scale far larger than Chi-Rita's invasion. Unlike the Wakanda War in the original history, except for the Avengers, only Wakanda soldiers participated in the war. As a small country in Africa, The population is only that small when technology is blown to the sky, and it is extremely difficult to make even a small opening under the torrent of steel from the vanguard. And now, in addition to the Wakanda soldiers, there is also a huge Kamar-Taj magician regiment, the Asgard army transferred by Thor himself that was originally destroyed by the Hela regiment in history. Every Asgard soldier has the same physical fitness as Captain America, which is more than enough for the vanguard. Thor sits firmly on the fishing platform inside the holy place, and no one can sneak in. Is this your hometown, Quill? A small spaceship lands on airfield atop the Stark building, and the Guardians of the Galaxy crew lands on Earth for the first time. It was Gamora who spoke. Shingju looked around complicatedly, and took a deep breath. Yes, I'm back. Rocket looked down at the big battle not far away, and asked in confusion, Quill, didn't you say that your hometown is a remote and backward planet? It doesn't look like it, not to mention top experts, just ordinary legions can compete with Thanos as the armies contend. The Asgardian soldiers were foreign reinforcements, he could see that. But Kamar-Taj's and Wakanda's troops are clearly indigenous, and are of countless years old heritage. This power alone is already a top power in the universe. New York Holy Place is located on Brick Street in Manhattan, at the southern tip of the Manhattan Peninsula. In war, the attacker has the biggest advantage over the defender. They can actively choose the direction and time of attack, while the defender can only respond passively. Thanos' army designed 3 attack routes to push people aside in a single brain. The first line landed in the Bronx district in the north, passed through most of the Manhattan Peninsula, and rushed straight. The offensive here must be the most ferocious. They need to face the vanguard of locusts crossing the border, and at the same time, there are a large number of Kiritas following. Thor is on the highest balcony of New York's holy place, overlooking most of Manhattan. Whether it's a Zarita fighter or a Leviathan giant coon, once they appear in sight, they will be immediately set on fire by lightning and torn apart by the tomahawk. The Wakanda army led by Black Panther T'Challa and Asgard soldiers are responsible for guarding this direction. Stark and Rhodes, as well as a large number of Wakanda fighters and SHIELD aircraft carriers control the air supremacy in this direction and assist the soldiers below. At the same time, a huge black dragon with a stature of tens of meters hovered in the air, and every spray of flames could clear a large open space. Roar! Hulk took the lead and was the first to rush into the vanguard army. Hulk is not afraid of crowd tactics. His recovery ability is strong and his defense is also high. It is difficult for ordinary vanguard attacks to be effective against him. And the jumping ability is there. Even if you are surrounded, jumping up and going to another place is another bloody storm. The commander on the opposite side was still considering how to deal with Hulk, and the Avengers army rushed up from behind. The all-out attacking Thanos Legion is definitely more than a group of mindless vanguards. On the contrary, the Dark Legion has a very comprehensive army, and the vanguards are just the lowest level cannon fodder. However, under the condition of being suppressed by Thor in the air, although the troops here are the largest, they are also the weakest. Their only role is to be used as cannon fodder to draw the power of the Avengers. The second landing point is located in Brooklyn, and the level of soldiers is higher. Because Thor's long-range attack can't take this area into consideration, almost all the Zarita spaceship and the giant Leviathan are dropped in this area. In charge of this piece is the Dog's Head Military Division, Ebony Maw. The army quickly attacked to the west. Most of the defenses here were mortal troops. They were vulnerable to Chi Ruita's army, and they couldn't stop their attack at all. It only needs to cross a narrow strait to go straight to Brick Street, putting a lot of pressure on Holy Place. But their target is not Thor. To this day, Thanos no longer has any hope of directly capturing the 4 gems in the opponent's hand. The only way is to release Dormammu, a super boss from the Dark Dimension, who can defeat Thor. Thor is really strong, and it's not difficult for him to defeat such an army, but it is also difficult to distract himself from protecting Holy Place, New York. Among other things, with so many giant Leviathans alone, even if the corpses were pressed in that direction, it would be enough to turn Holy Place in New York into ruins. Be sure to let that arrogant Asgardian taste the most painful punishment, as the price for offending the great Lord Thanos. Standing on the mind-controlled platform, Ebony Maw thought so, as if he had seen Thor's expression of despair when Asgard was swallowed. An ominous premonition rose, and Ebony Maw was alerted immediately. He frowned and gave an order. Wait, something is wrong, stop first. But it was already too late. Almost at the same time he shouted, the world around him was spinning. The space is turned upside down, and the surrounding buildings present incredible twists. One side becomes the floor, and the other side becomes the ceiling. The ground turned up abruptly, and countless Kiruita soldiers rolled and fell. The Leviathan giant coon had a low IQ, so it flew up instinctively, trying to rush out of this weird world. Boom. They knocked open the building above their heads, but failed to leave, because the space had been distorted, and a large number of giant leviathans entangled and collided with each other, making a heaven-shattering howl of pain. Figures flickered around. It was the magician of Kamar Taj. The golden magic whip swung over, wrapped around the neck of Chirita soldier and dragged him out, and the surrounding magicians used their magic to condense into swords to pierce him. The Kiruita soldiers who were in a mess reacted and hurriedly opened fire to fight back. Bang bang bang. But they forgot that the space here has long been abnormal, and the front seen by the eyes is not the real front. In one round of shooting, the emitted laser light turned back in the interlacing of light and shadow, not only failed to open up this space, but caused heavy casualties to his own people. In the air ahead, a horse-faced magician wearing a cloak landed slowly, and the current Sorcerer Supreme, Dr. Strange, looked at them indifferently. Ebony Maw finally realized how difficult it would be for the magician in front of him who had been easily defeated by him to have a chance to read the article. However, since the other party dares to show his body, he has a chance. Ebony Maw's expression became serious, and he became ruthless, stretching out his hand and pointing forward. The attack of guns and ammunition will be affected by spatial disorder, but psychokinesis will not, because Ebony Maw originally is the object at the other end of the barrier of manipulation. Crack lala. Under Strange, several steel bars broke out from the concrete floor, and began to twist under the unparalleled force, forming a giant net. Strange's expression remained unchanged, as if he didn't notice. Ebony Maw's palm slowly clenched into a fist. Following his movements, the giant steel net enveloped Strange. Ebony Maw's eyes flashed a sinister look. He could see that Strange was the leader of this group of magicians, and also the core of this strange magic, as long as he was solved, the spell Tiet. But soon, his face changed. Because the giant net stopped in the air when it was about to restrain Strange, no matter how Ebony Maw controls it, it will not be moved. Ebony Maw gritted his teeth and increased the input of psychokinesis. Psychokinesis control. You're not at home. A young girl is suspended in the void. Her red hair is flying in the wind. She is as beautiful and shocking as ordinary flames. Using psychokinesis in the same way, Ebony Maw needs to control the platform on the soles of the feet to hold it up, while Chin Gele does not need any medium, and it is clear at a glance which is better. Being the strongest mutant not only depends on Phoenix Force, Professor X's mind ability, Magneto's control ability, and the collection of super abilities of the two protagonists, but also has stronger potential. Unlike the dancing Ebony Maw, Chin Gele didn't make any movements, just a thought flashed in her mind, and the giant steel net shrouded in pain screamed, and was quickly dismantled. The rebar fell back to the ground one by one, and even the concrete raised when the Ebony Maw was raised before was covered again. This control made Ebony Maw's face turn green. On the southernmost coast of Manhattan, several small donut spaceships surfaced silently, and General Blade landed quietly with a troop. This is the third landing on the other side of Manhattan. To the north is a large number of vanguards as cannon fodder forcibly attacking, and to the south is the elite route. Except for some soldiers who are obviously more armed, Hanbu death-defying vanguard is just a cover, and there is also the black technology of Thanos Legion hovering tanks. With a burst of low roars, a group of behemoths emerged from the spaceship. This is the most powerful unit in the Thanos Legion, gigantic apes. Each great ape is equipped with 3 skilled Zerita soldiers, 2 of whom unchain it, and the last one is responsible for guiding its attack. These giant apes are no less than Hulk's size, and their fighting methods are also very similar. All they need to do is to rampage on the battlefield, smashing all kinds of things to death. This army has the smallest number, but its strength is the strongest. Thor glanced in this direction, and quickly looked away. A mere Corvus Glaive is not worth taking action by myself, even if the Black Order gathers is not my goal. How could Thor not think of the route that Thanos could think of? Although this attack route is the shortest, it also has the greatest resistance. When Corvus Glaive saw the large number of Avengers waiting in front of him, he knew that the decapitation was half lost. Here, the most Avengers are obviously gathered. The other party did not go to block the seemingly most dangerous north side but gathered here, obviously knowing their intentions. Corvus Glaive sighed secretly. I hope the Master's final arrangement will take effect. When he came back to his senses, he gritted his teeth and said, "You ignorant mortals can't stop the great Lord Thanos. You don't understand the Master's love for the universe at all." This bullshit theory of Thanos, Thor had already told the other Avengers as a chat after dinner, and they all sneered. You save the universe. You're awesome. But you King want my life, the lives of my relatives and friends, then you are a coward. It was Captain America who was in charge of talking back. He said loudly, human beings should control their own destiny instead of handing it over to the so-called destiny. On our land, Thanos can't succeed, he can only die. This was Steve's first fight as president. For this reason, I don't know how many politicians have almost worn out their lips but failed to persuade him. I'm running to better protect my people, to fight for our freedom and our lives, not to hide and command. I'm a fighter, not a politician. This is what he said to the camera before putting on the combat uniform and picking up the shield today. For Lord Thanos, kill. For our people, for our tomorrow, kill. The two armies fought together. In Brooklyn, Ebony Maw is already sweating profusely, and his eyes are even oozing. He bears the mission of Lord Thanos. Even though he knows that he is not an opponent, he still fights Ching-Gri with all his life. However, the gap in strength is too great. Psychokinesis is a very special ability, colorless and formless, difficult to defend against, and no trace at all. In addition to being countered by special methods, such as Thor's instant lightning strike, Ebony Maw can defeat many stronger opponents in many cases. But this ability has a disadvantage. When encountering an opponent with higher strength than oneself in this aspect, one will be powerless to fight back. Right now, Ebony Maw's psychokinesis doesn't seem to be covered by anything, and Jean Grey's in hot pursuit. Ebony Maw, the dignified Black Order, is fierce, and sadly finds that he can't even control a small stone, and he has completely become a leader. Ching-Gele showed a cruel smile. Since you have no more recruits, it's my turn. Let me show you how the real psychokinesis is used. Stretch out your hands and unleash the greatest force forward. Immediately, a large number of Kiruita soldiers found that the guns in their hands began to struggle uncontrollably, and then broke free from their hands, aiming the black muzzles at themselves. Ebony Maw's eyeballs almost popped out. Bang bang bang. Ah, the continuous gunshots came to mind, mixed with screams. For a time, the enclosed space was like hell. These turtles in the urn tried to resist, and some people even took out their special grenades, which were not as powerful as the black hole grenades of the Dark Elves. But it's of no use. The grenade was thrown towards the girl floating in the air, disappeared in the chaotic space, reappeared in another place, and flew back towards his troops. Boom. Even many Leviathan giant Kuns were struggling, being pulled by Chin's psychokinesis. Their huge bodies, which were already difficult to maintain their balance, fell to the ground like ordinary mountains, crushing a large number of soldiers under them. Ebony Maw screamed in despair. No, he tried his best to stop and try to control these guns to cease fire, but he couldn't do it at all. Kamar Taj's magicians, who were still hooking people from inside, stopped their movements and looked at Ching-Gele with some horror. They didn't expect that this seemingly weak and timid girl actually possessed such a terrifying ability, and she could kill without changing her face at a young age. They didn't know how cruel Jean Grey's world was and how miserable mutants' life was. At a young age, Chin has experienced more than many people in a lifetime. Here, it seems to be the most stable one among the three battlefields. Beside Dr. Strange, Fatty Wong came out slowly. He took a look at the miserable state of the Kirita people, and his face was a little weird. What kind of hatred is this? I really didn't see a little girl whose face doesn't change when she kills someone. Strange smiled without saying a word. Although he didn't know where Ching-Gri came from, he could guess that she was not from this universe, and she suffered discrimination and exclusion in the former world. When she came to this world, Thor was the first person who treated her well, and Asgard obviously brought her a different feeling from the Earth she used to live on, so in her heart Asgard is her home. Thanos and his gang created Ragnarok, which almost destroyed Asgard. It is the result of Thor's appeasement that Chin didn't run away. Fatty Wong stared at it for a while, and suddenly asked in confusion, "Why do I feel that the current strength is not her real power? It seems that there is an extremely powerful power in her body that is sleeping. This power is too terrifying, even scarier than Dormammu. Once it breaks out, I'm worried." Fatty Wong closed his mouth. Ching-Gri is one of Thor's people, she can't be crow-mouthed. It will be fine. She has a treasure that restricts her power, so she won't lose control easily. Strange interrupted Fatty Wong and looked at Chin's neck. There is the universe circle. Although the form was hidden, Thor couldn't touch it, but as the Sorcerer Supreme, Strange could see it at a glance. It doesn't matter if there is such a day, we still have Thor. Fatty Wong noticed that what Strange said was not, won't get out of control, but won't get out of control easily. www. On the southern coast of Manhattan, another fight has begun. Corvus Glaive could tell at a glance that Steve was the leader of these people here, at least the spiritual leader. After all, the shield was too conspicuous. Moreover, his strength is still very ordinary, so he can only be regarded as a strong ordinary person. Capture the thief first and capture the king first. If you kill the leader, the opponent's morale will definitely be affected. When the time comes, you will break through their barriers and rush into Holy Place in New York. No matter how powerful Thor is, he can't stop the destruction of so many people. As if reading his mind, Steve didn't back away. With a flick of his hand, the invincible big shield flew out with a hoo-hoo sound, and directly grabbed Corvus Glaive's head. Facing the shield thrown by Steve, Corvus Glaive didn't fly with a single shot, showing a disdainful grin. You lost your weapon at the beginning, and you still want to kill me? Are you a fool? How can you fight me with your bare hands now? He rushed forward with a ferocious face, intending to kill this ignorant mortal with one shot. Bang! A sudden heavy blow came from the back of the head, causing Ben, who was rushing forward, to fall to the ground like a dog eating shit. Wow! That's amazing. The little Spider-Man Peter Parker hanging from the street lamp whistled. You ugly uncle, are you planning to surrender? No need to kowtow, we don't like this. Maybe I'm too afraid of death. It was Ant-Man who spoke. Maybe this guy is used to kneeling in front of purple sweet potato essence on weekdays, Shinju continued. After the Guardians of Galaxy landed in the Stark building, they were quickly taken to meet Thor, and then arranged to go to the southern battlefield. Although this group of people is funny, they are actually very fierce. Marvel's 4 chatterboxes, 3 of them are gathered here, and 1 is in another parallel world. Well, the 3 powerful kings, Corvus Glaive. The people under Thanos have one thing in common, they look down on Earthlings. In their conception, this is just a ghostly place where people don't shit and birds don't lay eggs, a group of uncivilized primitive people. The level of science that cannot even reach the level of other recent planets, what is it if it is not a primitive man? After being teased by a lowly creature in his eyes, he made a big fool of himself, and was severely mocked by 3 sluts. Corvus Glaive rage was insane and wanted to kill. He jumped on Steve right away, and soon regretted it. On the opposite side, the indigenous Earthling who is only being strengthened, although the lethality is not enough, but the defense is really strong. The invincible big shield in the opponent's hand violates all kinds of common sense in physics. All kinds of flying around are easier to use than magic, and they will appear in the most suitable position every time. The opponent's strength is obviously not his opponent, but he can't beat him no matter what, and he can't even gain the upper hand. The legendary Super God 50-50 is so awesome, boom. After a fierce confrontation, the two separated, and Steve grinned. I can fight all day. I can fight all day too. Corvus Glaive cursed, feeling a little worried. My group of people are surprise soldiers, just to catch the opponent by surprise. My strongest combat power is really dragged here by this guy. Let alone fighting for a whole day, it is useless to fight for a year. Looking around from the corner of his eye, the battle situation is not optimistic. Great apes are really strong, they are about the size of a Hulk, and this size alone can cause an overwhelming advantage over mortals. What to do with big guys? The correct answer is, bigger than him. Big big big. Ant shouted, and everyone around them looked at the idiot. Also, are you a monkey? Ant-Man is definitely not a monkey, but the next moment he becomes Rui Golden Cudgel. Even though they had witnessed this scene with their own eyes, Lil Spider-Man and the others were still astonished. A person with a normal body shape rapidly swells in just a few seconds, turning into a giant tens of meters tall in an instant. The 2-meter-high giant ape is like a group of mice in front of it. Who? Ant-Man's insolent, wretched laughter sounded, and he raised 1 foot high. Little Spider-Man understood, flicked his fingers, and the cobweb flew out, sticking to the legs of the nearest giant ape and pulling hard. The great ape lost his balance and fell to the ground, dragged by Little Spider-Man struggling to get up. When the field of vision dimmed, a big foot fell from the sky. Crackling. Ant-Man stepped down with 1 foot and twisted twice violently, and there was a crisp sound of bones breaking under his feet. The giantization of Ant-Man is actually very unscientific, not only the science of the real world, but also an unsolved mystery in the Marvel world. Because of his small size and magnification, it is based on the Pym scaling technology, which was developed by Dr. Hank Pym. Under the dual effects of Pym particles and special battle uniforms, a controllable zooming in and out is realized. Technology. Change its density by compressing or stretching the distance between molecules, keeping the original physical properties unchanged, enlarge or reduce volume. That is, no matter how the body size changes, the strength and body weight are constant, which is verified when he shrinks. But once he magnifies himself, everything is different. Not only the weight increases proportionally, but also the strength is no longer what it was before, as if he has become a real giant. Knocking down a giant leviathan with one punch is beyond the reach of mortals, not even Hulk. Not to mention the weight, the level of black dwarf that stomps to death. The only flaw after getting bigger is probably not being flexible enough. But with the help of teammates, this flaw is not important. Seeing that Ant-Man raised his foot slowly again, this time it was Wanda who shot. Red energy enveloped the other giant ape, dragging it with a wave of his hand. Crack. Corvus Glaive's eyelids twitched wildly. Why are there so many demons and ghosts on the Earth? In the original historical Battle of Wakanda, Ant-Man was helping Dr. Pym rescue Wasp, missed the battle, and was finally trapped in the quantum realm, and his daughter didn't know him when he came out. At this time, Thanos launched the Infinity War in advance, and Ant-Man was imprisoned because of the Sokovia Act, and was executed outside the prison. Now he has not entered the quantum realm. Tito. Corvus Glaive's face darkened. To the north, soldiers of Asgard and Wakanda struggle to fend off the steady stream of Vanguard. In terms of individual strength, Asgard soldiers are the strongest, followed by Wakanda soldiers, and the weakest are the Vanguard and She-Rita soldiers. But neither Asgard nor Wakanda is a large ethnic group. The population is not large, and there are even fewer soldiers to fight. It is impossible for Thor and T'Challa to send all the old, young, women and children to the battlefield. This is only done when facing the crisis of genocide. Even if they win, it will seriously hurt the vitality, and it will be difficult to recover every 1,000 years. But Thanos has no such scruples. For him, whether it is the She-Rita or the Vanguard, the value is only this time. If he wins, everything will be fine, and if he loses, it is useless to keep it. Even if Stark and others supported them in the air, plus a black dragon's non-stop dragon's breath washing the ground, it still couldn't make up for the absolute difference in numbers. F*K. Stark couldn't help cursing. Thanos has so many dogs at home. The bullets can't keep up. Then he shouted in the communicator. Thor, what cards do you have? Use them quickly, or we will all be bitten to death. On Holy Place number 2, Thanos looked at the scene below, the corners of his mouth curled up. He's been waiting for this moment. There is no way to break the game, and Thor can solve it with a shot. Crowd tactics have little effect on a magician with a super wide range attack, and Thor just fits it. Back then, a few people dared to enter the kingdom of giants of Jotunheim, but it wasn't for sending them off. But it's obviously not suitable for Thor to go out at this time, because Thanos hasn't appeared yet. Once Thor leaves Holy Place on the front foot, Thanos will inevitably rush to steal the house on the back foot. Baron Mordo probably won't shoot directly, but he will still open the door to the same Holy Place for Mie. But don't worry, reinforcements will arrive soon. Thor gave a mysterious smile. Reinforcements? Stark is a little confused. Who else did not participate in the battle? Could it be an interstellar ally? Thor shook his head. No, it's a native of the Earth. Cutting the comm, Thor called Ant-Man. Scott, come down the northern line, your command is needed here. No problem. The enemy on the South Road suffered heavy losses, and they could not afford to turn around much. Ant-Man looked at a golden circle of light slowly forming under his feet, pressed the button to change to normal size, walked in, and came to the rear of the northern battlefield. Seeing Stark's gaze overhead, he grinned. Hey, reinforcements are coming, I'll bring them. Stark became more and more puzzled. Is there any other hidden forces on the Earth besides Wakanda and Kamar-Taj? Soon he knew the answer. The Earth suddenly began to vibrate. This is the sound of thousands of troops galloping. Stark turned his head to look in the direction of the voice, and saw a dark patch. Wow, is this our reinforcements? Stark said in surprise. Strange, when did New York hide so many people? Friday's voice rang out. Boss, they're not people. Oh? Stark raised his eyebrows, opened the binoculars attached to the armor, and immediately widened his eyes. At the forefront of the battlefield, an Asgard soldier stabbed a Vanguard to death with a single shot. This was already the 5th enemy he had killed. The moment he pulled out his spear, another Vanguard rushed up and threw him to the ground, opening his bloody mouth to bite his throat. Ah! A black shadow flashed in front of his eyes, and the expected death did not come. The soldier turned his head to look at the enemy, and found that it was rolling all over the ground, and what was entangled with it and biting was an ant F*K. This is an ant more than 1 meter long. Not only him, but other comrades around, including the superhero, were stunned to watch the countless huge ants and vanguards biting into a ball. Stark. Thor, what kind of ant is this? An Asgard species? No, it's just an ordinary black ant. Thor's tone was very relaxed. You know, Dr. Pym has a way to make himself bigger, and he can also make other things bigger. That's how the cars at the German airport suddenly got bigger. So, it's a pity, now he can only communicate with ants normally, and other insects can't do it for the time being. Otherwise, he will get a group of mosquitoes the size of a buffalo and kill him. Stark's heart was full of pitfalls. He suddenly felt that his Iron Legion, which was still in production and could arm the world, was not so good. As I said before, there seems to be some bugs in the enlargement function of Pym particles. When the volume of the target becomes larger, the strength and mass will also increase. Theoretically, ants can lift things that are hundreds of times their own body weight, and they are recognized as Hercules in the animal kingdom. After the Pym particles become larger, although it is no longer such an exaggeration, is no less than avant-garde. Moreover, the unique physiological structure of the exoskeleton of insects makes their body surface covered with a thick layer of armor. The Avengers Alliance was surprised and delighted by the sudden friendly forces, while Thanos was surprised and angry. Boom! Thanos punched down angrily, and the computer screen exploded again. Well, he used his left arm just now, and it was still bandaged, and it hasn't fully recovered yet. The sharp pain in his shoulder woke him up. The defeat on the third front made him have to consider other plans. Originally, his plan was to lure Thor out, and then personally attack the holy place to make sure nothing would go wrong. But Thor seemed to have guessed his thoughts, and he didn't come out anyway, as if his goal was only Thanos from beginning to end. There was a loud noise, and the entire holy place number 2 was shaken. What happened? Thanos asked hastily with an ominous premonition. My lord, a large number of hostile spaceships have launched an attack on us. Our frigate is no match. Who is it? How many are here? Thanos said in a deep voice. There are too many, overwhelming, and not the same batch. The largest number includes Asgard battleships, Xandar's Nova Legion, and Marauders. A group of bastards who have made trouble, Thanos cursed angrily. Most of these people, except for the strongest ones, usually don't have the guts to trouble him. Seeing that they might stumble on the earth, they all ran to take advantage of the fire. What is even more annoying is that the current holy place number 2 has not been completely repaired, and the weapon system has not been put in place in time. Facing the attacks of these people, it is a toothless tiger. You don't have time for hesitation. The voice of Baron Modu came. After today, no matter whether you win or lose, your army will lose the power to dominate the universe. This is your last chance. Only by summoning my master can you turn defeat into victory. This is already the last chance. Thanos clenched his fists, the anger in his eyes was slowly dissipating, replaced by a bone-chilling cold. On the battlefield north of Manhattan, since the army of ants joined in, the battle situation has been reversed, and the balance of victory has begun to tilt towards the side of the Avengers. Thor looked down on it all. The value of Ant-Man, in his eyes, is not just as simple as a giant. Thor is not a scientist, and he can't do academic work. But he is somewhat beyond the imagination of ordinary people, and he can always think of some tactics that ordinary people can't easily think of. It is impossible to transform so many ants with Dr. Pym's material inventory alone. Therefore, as early as a few months ago, Thor asked King to give him a huge amount of funding in the name of Wilson Fisk, and prepared a large number of Pym particles in advance. In the sky, flames flashed from time to time. This means that Thanos' base camp has been attacked, right? The situation was very good, but Thor's expression gradually became dignified. Thanos will not be willing to fail at this point. Jumping over the wall in a hurry is an inevitable choice. On the battlefield, Ant-Man Scott Lang is excitedly commanding the army of ants to charge into battle. He never thought that a man like himself would one day become a marshal commanding thousands of troops. A circle of light quietly appeared behind him. Most people don't care. Even if some people see it, they don't care. Everyone knows the portal of Kamar Taj. This is a friendly army. Only the quick-witted Stark noticed something was wrong, and shouted, "Be careful. This is not from Kamar Taj." Before the words were finished, a golden glove stretched out from the space door and stuck it on Ant-Man's back, and then Thanos walked out of it, holding his signature weapon Overlord Skyblade in his left hand. The light of mind gem flashed, and confusion flashed in Scott Lang's eyes. His willpower was not considered firm, and he was controlled in an instant. Immediately, the army of ants stopped moving, wandered around for a few seconds as if they had lost their target, and all looked at the Avengers Alliance side. Too bad. Stark was terrified in his heart, and was about to make a move when another portal appeared above Ant-Man's head, and the Mantis Girl fell from the sky and pressed on his head. Sleep. Ant-Man fell to the ground with a plop, and was dragged away by Stark, who drove him down, and slowly dispersed like ants. Thanos grinned grinningly, and with a flick of his hand, the Overlord Skyblade flew out in a twirling motion, leaving stumps and limbs strewn everywhere it passed, leaving no armor left. Roar. Hulk roared angrily, raised a sledgehammer and slapped the flying saber heavily. Boom _ with a loud noise, the huge hammer in Hulk's hand flew out in an instant, and the Overlord blade continued to slash across Hulk's chest before flying backwards. A stream of green blood spewed out, flying backwards like a kite with a broken thread. Beat the Hulk in one move. Black Panther took advantage of this gap and rushed forward. His movements were extremely vigorous, and his extremely sharp claws tried to tear Thanos' body. However, Thanos moved faster than him, and his burly body was somewhat unusually agile. With a slap of his gloved right hand, Black Panther was instantly sent flying tens of meters, and fell unconscious on the ground. No matter how much he suffered at the hands of Thor, Thanos is still the top boss in the universe. Except for Thor, no one present can stand up to him, and few are even qualified to fight him. A thunderbolt several meters thick fell from the sky, bombarded Thanos, and knocked him out. The whole sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds, and Thor's battle axe was in his hand, striking at him with the momentum of destroying everything. Knowing the power of the battle axe, Thanos rolled over while still stiff from the lightning strike, dodging the fatal blow. It was not in vain for the battle axe to slap the ground. Countless thunderlights seemed to be drawn by the Stormbreaker within a few kilometers, roaring and falling. Wherever they passed, whether they were vanguards or Kiruita soldiers, they were all wiped out. The soldiers of our own side, who were under great pressure because of the withdrawal of the army of ants, suddenly emptied their surroundings. Destroy all armies with one blow. We are talking about this moment. Thanos could no longer be distracted from the life and death of those subordinates. He clenched the Overlord Skyblade in his hand, and stared at Thor. Thor is equally cautious. This time it was not a sneak attack at the right time and place, but a direct confrontation with Thanos. Vaguely, there seems to be a feeling of welcoming fate. Soldiers from both sides dispersed on their own initiative, and an open space appeared on Nuada's battlefield. Although they are still fighting, many people on both sides are paying attention to every move here. This is a duel of the strongest. Thanos took the lead in the attack, and the Overlord Skyblade flew out across the sky. Thor approached with a sliding shovel, jumped up with a battle axe in his hand, and slashed heavily at Thanos. Thanos withdrew the Overlord Skyblade and blocked the blow. Boom _ in Brooklyn, the Kiruita soldiers in the closed space have almost been wiped out. Some of them died from the guns fired by Chingele, and some of them were trying to counterattack and fired outwards, but ended up shooting to our own people. Chingele showed no mercy to these invaders. Ebony Maw is almost insane. It was the first time for him to feel that he could do nothing while watching the troops he brought with him die. Not to mention, this is Thanos' most important war yet. But there is nothing he can do. Even Thanos can't help. When entering the game, I deliberately didn't choose the most critical Brooklyn area, because he doesn't know how much Kamar Taj has done here. The magician is like this. The encounter is very passive, that is to say, Kamar Taj's products are all melee magicians, so that the enemy will not be powerless when they get close. However, once the magician is prepared, they can build a magic circle far beyond their own strength, and step into the opponent's trap without knowing how to die. Thanos' reason prevailed, and Brooklyn's men, including Ebony Maw, were already abandoned in a sense. A piece of iron slowly rises from the ground and scratches across Ebony Maw's neck. Ebony Maw didn't stop, and couldn't stop. He is no match for Jean Grey. From the moment psychokinesis loses to the opponent, the outcome is already doomed. At this point, another general under Thanos was killed. The Black Order that once stirred up a bloodbath in the universe, only Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight are left. Well, Proxima Midnight doesn't seem to be in the fray yet. On the battlefield south of Manhattan, after Ant-Man left, there was no big man who stepped on the giant ape like a whack-a-mole, and the pressure on Thanos' army suddenly eased. However, most of the giant ape army that they regard as their main combat power has already been destroyed, and most of the remaining ones are still in shock and out of control, basically can't play much role. Right now, they are still being suppressed and beaten by the Avengers, and the battle line is tightly suppressed near the coastline. Corvus Glaive realizes he needs to unleash some big moves. The waves on the sea suddenly became violent, and several huge monsters emerged from the sea. This is the big killer of the Thanos Legion, the Big Gear Chariot. The Gear Chariot rotated at a high speed and flew towards the direction of the Avengers. The firepower of the Avengers aimed at one of the flanks of the Gear Chariot, trying to make it change direction, but it was completely useless. The ground was cut open, and all the buildings it passed were ruins, leaving only cracks in the ground. At the critical moment, Wanda made a decisive move. Red energy radiates. Under the inconceivable gaze of Corvus Glaive, the rapidly advancing Gear Chariot paused, was instantly lifted, and was suspended in the air. Wanda's mental power was exerted to the maximum, and with a wave of her hand, the huge amounts of Gear Chariot instantly reversed its direction and pressed in the direction of Corvus Glaive. Damn it! Corvus Glaive's complexion changed, and he hurriedly avoided. But his soldiers were not so lucky. The Gear Chariot was like an ordinary lawnmower, plowing out an open field. The Corvus Glaive side took a big hit. At this moment, there was a burst of thunder, and the continuous dazzling thunder light illuminated the entire sky. Corvus Glaive was startled at first, then his expression became serious, and he immediately picked up the communicator and whispered inside, "He's out. Tune the tiger away from the mountain." This was Thanos' plan from the beginning. The remaining 3 members of the Black Order, Corvus Glaive is still being defeated on the south coast. Ebony Maw has already kneeled, but Proxima Midnight has not appeared for a long time. She had been waiting for a chance for Thor to leave the holy place. This is the most important part of the whole plan, and Thanos must do it himself for such a finalized task. But obviously, Thor is not so easy to fool. After all, I only stole my house once in Asgard, and another wave was stolen at Holy Place number 2. If you don't guard the crystal well, it's a mallet. Especially with the defeat in several frontal battlefields and the fire in the backyard, Mie had no choice but to take action himself. Thanos doesn't know why. Thor has always wanted to kill himself. Even if he hadn't provoked Asgard at the beginning, it was already like this. So the only person who can lead Thor is himself. The task of sneaking into the holy place and destroying it can only be handed over to Proxima Midnight. The addition of Thanos is enough to turn the tide of the battle, if Thor insists on not. You're moving slowly. You are no longer the destroyer you used to be, it's time for you to retire. The back wave of the Yangtze River pushes the front wave, and the front wave dies on the beach. You are the one I pushed to death on the beach, so don't struggle anymore. Hiding for what? If it's a man, just come here. Thor continued to exhale the fragrance. For so many years, he has experienced countless battles, but he has never been really comfortable now. This is the first time he has completely suppressed Thanos in a head-to-head confrontation. Thanos is still stronger than him, and his fighting skills are better. But Thor is not a pure warrior. This is the advantage of both magic and martial arts. Even if the power of thunder can't cause harm, it can still cause great harassment. What's more, the super buff of Man of Steel allows him to exchange injuries with Thanos unscrupulously. Moreover, Thanos' left arm has not yet recovered, and it may not be visible at ordinary times, but it will be extremely deadly in a life and death battle. From the start, Thanos had no chance of winning. When the battle axe and the broadsword intersected, Thanos found a fighter, and slashed on the battle axe with all his strength. While the opponent didn't react, he used a set of New Year's greeting knife techniques, chopping continuously in an instant. Bang bang bang, all around. Thor's hands went numb, the tomahawk was slightly deflected, and the sky knife immediately stabbed straight at his neck. Thor deflected the slightest and missed the point. Thanos was about to draw his weapon back, but Thor grabbed the blade with one hand. There was a pain in the tiger's mouth, and the sword definitely couldn't be grasped, but it finally made Thanos move a little slower, and the battle axe in his right hand slashed along the sword. Click. Even if Thanos withdrew his hand immediately, it would be too late, because the electric current from Tyrant Heavenly Blade made his hands and feet numb, and his movements were half a beat slower. The axe blade brushed against his waist. Ah! Thanos covered his waist with one hand, panting heavily. Thor raised his left hand grasping the saber, with a blush in the palm of his hand. He couldn't help but taunt it. It took so much effort to make me shed a drop of blood? Thanos looked as if he had eaten Shang. Not far away, Stark, who has been paying attention to the battle here, heard Thor's words, and quietly gave a thumbs up. Well done. As the saying goes, it is better to break one than to hurt 10 fingers, and Thanos definitely knows this truth. But it's easier said than done. With Thor's current physical strength, unless he stood still and stretched out his neck for him to chop, it would be difficult to cause effective damage. Relying on countless years of fighting skills, the saber in Thanos' hand has actually passed Thor's side several times, but every time it can only cause a shallow mark. For a person who has been on the battlefield, even injuries are not considered. Relying on this bit of damage to slowly accumulate, expecting quantitative changes and qualitative changes, that is a dream. However, Thor's attack is the kind that will kill him once he hits it. He was hit by an axe in the waist, and now he can barely stop the bleeding. And this bastard never stopped mocking himself from beginning to end. The skies suddenly lit up, and a flame spread, accompanied by a burst of constant explosions. Both Thanos and Thor knew it was the explosion of Sindan's skewer. Such a gigantic battleship, with no way to fire, was left with only a tortoise shell, and was finally completely destroyed after enduring countless attacks. Thanos glanced at it, the corners of his eyes revealing little nostalgia, and then turned to Thor. "Do you really think you have won?" Thor didn't answer. Thanos showed a cruel smile. "After so long, some things should be almost done." As he spoke, he looked in the direction of Holy Place. The expressions of Stark and the others changed drastically. In the original plot, the Thanos Legion used the big gear chariot to lure Wanda, causing Vision to be stolen by Corvus Glaive. And in this life, it is Proxima Midnight that performs this task. She sneaked in cautiously. Kamar Taj's powerful magician went to Brooklyn to block Ebony Maw, and the rest here are all trash, who can't even draw a portal, and she easily handles it. Although Proxima Midnight, as Thanos' loyal henchman, was upset at paying such a high price for other people's bosses, she also knew that this was a deal that couldn't be helped. Sneaking all the way, I finally saw a huge amount of ball at the end of the corridor, engraved with magic circles on it, exuding faint magic power. As long as this magic item is smashed, the protection of this world will disappear completely, and Dormammu will come. In exchange, Dormammu would give the rough to Thanos, and then just snap your fingers. At this moment, she suddenly felt something was wrong. It went so smoothly, it was almost as if the other party had done it on purpose. Knowing that this is the most important place, it is impossible for Thor to leave without making any arrangements, right? With these few rookie magicians left behind, a team of fully armed special forces can handle it. She stopped cautiously. "Go on, why not pass? Break this magic ball, and this holy place will be paralyzed." A cold voice, as if from the purgatory of Juyu, came from all directions. "Who? Come out." Proxima Midnight turned pale with fright, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. The hairs all over his body stood up instantly, and he raised his weapon and looked around. In the dark corner, Rideo's slender figure slowly walked out. On the battlefield outside, facing the shock of Stark, Black Panther and others, Thanos laughed wildly. "It's too late. You will soon know the real despair. Asgard people will be too busy to take care of themselves and have no time to protect this planet." After hearing Thanos' words, Thor was not shocked as expected, but looked indifferent. "Is this your plan? At all costs to lead me out of the holy place, so that your people can sneak in and cause damage?" Thanos frowned, and Thor's reaction was a little strange. Could it be that? Thanos' heart sank. Inside the holy place, a slender figure stepped out of the darkness and appeared. Proxima Midnight doesn't know each other, but it doesn't hinder knowing who she is. This strong power of death, there is no second. Princess Asgard, god of death, Hela. Seeing her silence, Hela spoke first, and the first sentence was, "Kneel down." Proxima Midnight. "It's impossible to kneel, it's impossible to kneel in this life. No, I can only kneel to Lord Thanos in this life." "What? Do you still want to resist?" As Hela said, she stretched out her hand to gather the ends of her hair, and her long black hair instantly turned into sharp sword-like spikes, slowly walking towards her. Proxima Midnight gritted her teeth and said, "As far as I know, it was Odin who sealed you back then, and now his son stole your throne. Are you willing to give up? Why do you still sacrifice your life for him? You can't beat Hela. Even Thanos will have a headache against this god of death who conquers the universe in front of countless people." Proxima Midnight can only try to provoke the relationship between her and Thor. After all, the relationship between the former eldest princess and other members of the Asgard royal family does not seem to be very happy. As expected, Hela stopped in her tracks. Proxima Midnight was overjoyed, and continued. "Why don't you cooperate with us? Lord Thanos' goal is to wipe out half of the population, and he doesn't want to rule the world. When he completes his goal, the throne of Asgard is yours." Hela showed a mocking smile. "Is it really a win-win deal?" Proxima Midnight was overjoyed and was about to speak when she suddenly felt a pain in her chest. She lowered her head in horror, looked at the black dagger on her chest, raised her head with difficulty, moved her lips but was speechless. "Do you want to know why?" Hela whispered. "Then think about it more." Proxima Midnight. Hela no longer cares about her, just turn around and leave. Asgard's internal problems are very complicated, and it is difficult for outsiders to figure it out. Hela does have ambitions, but that doesn't mean she's willing to collude with outsiders. It only wiped out half of the people, it's as polite as it is, I am. Besides, who doesn't know that if you succeed in doing things, Asgard may be gone? Oh, by the way, it was you bastards who made Ragnarok last time, and I haven't settled with you yet. Hela's feelings for Asgard are not much weaker than Thor's, are even stronger. Proxima Midnight did not come alone, but a group of commando soldiers brought by her was dealt with by a wave of flying swords and turned into skeleton soldiers. Now she is still nailed to the wall by the black dagger. Her eyes begin to lose sight, and there is only one thought circling in her mind. I am afraid that Thanos' victory will never be seen again. She really couldn't see it. Actually, Thanos couldn't see it either. With a loud noise, Fung Tomahawk and Jay Tianli were reloaded together. Thanos stared blankly at the Overlord Skyblade that had been split in two, with mixed feelings. This weapon has been with him for countless years, and it has always been an invincible existence, just like himself. But today, it broke, and after all, it couldn't hold the strongest artifact in Stormbreaker's hands. Inside the holy place in New York, there was no movement for a long time. Thanos tried to initiate a call, but got no response. Needless to say, Thanos knew that something was wrong. In the air, Stark suddenly received a message, and he shouted excitedly, "Good news! Steve told me that Corvus Glaive has been executed." Strange also sent a message. Ebony Maw is dead too. In the direction of Holy Place, a Chirida-turned skeleton soldier ran out with a weapon and handed it to Thor. "This is Proxima Midnight's weapon." Thanos looked at the majestic Thor with a complicated expression. "More than 10 years ago, when I saw this little boy from the Odin family for the first time, how could I have thought that this would be my biggest enemy on the road to great ideals?" Thanos smiled wryly. How could it be possible? Thor at that time was just a high-level second-generation ancestor, and he was also a fat man. It wasn't until he was stopped by Thor, Wanda, and Carol when he went to Nadawi to make gloves, and lost Black Dwarf, that he took him seriously. Thor still didn't relax. He knows better than anyone how tough Thanos' mind is. Words such as surrender or admit defeat do not appear in his dictionary. At the last moment of his previous life, even though most of his body was split by Stormbreaker, he still didn't give up and insisted on snapping his fingers. Sure enough, Thanos picked up half of the Overlord Heavenly Blade, and charged at Thor with the aura of death. Proxima Midnight's plan failed, and Dormammu's so-called support must have gone to Java, but the word surrender does not exist in Thanos' dictionary. A fierce battle, which destroyed almost everything around, finally died down. Cough cough. Thanos was drenched in blood so that he propped his body on his hands and knelt on the ground, coughing non-stop. With that heavy blow just now, Stormbreaker sliced open his chest, exposing thick bones, which looked extremely terrifying. If it was another person, I am afraid that he would have died many times. And Thanos already has at least 3 such injuries on his body. Thanos sighed as he watched the crowd of Avengers Alliance staring at him. Finally, it still failed. Although I have been psychologically prepared for it very early, this is a road of no return. Or, fulfill your goal, live the life you really want to live, and watch the sunrise amidst the gratitude and curses of half the universe. Either way, die in battle on the road to your ideal. Clang when the Overlord Skyblade fell to the ground. With all eyes on, Thanos spoke. "I ask for a decent death. The battle is coming to an end, and many people from the other 2 battlefields have come here to witness the end of a generation of heroes." A magician wearing a long hood stood in the crowd, watching Thanos seem to be weighing something. No one noticed him, after all Kamar Taj's magician originally was mysterious. Thor sighed, picked up his battle axe and walked over. Gamora beside him couldn't help but close his eyes. Thanos glanced in Gamora's direction, with a complex expression on his face, and then also closed his eyes, waiting for the reward of death. The sound of Thor's footsteps was getting closer, and Thanos, who had closed his eyes and waited to die, suddenly felt as if he had caught something in his heart. "No. I haven't lost yet." Thanos suddenly opened his eyes, facing Thor who was almost walking up to him. He stretched out his right hand quickly and shook his head. Immediately, a bright ray rushed out from the Infinity Gauntlet, heading straight for Thor. F*K. Thanos, you bastard. Thor was caught off guard, cursed and subconsciously raised his tomahawk to block the rays, and was knocked back tens of meters away. Boom. The ray was reflected by the battle axe and shot in all directions. A large piece of the ground was torn apart, leaving a long trace, and the sky was filled with smoke and dust for a while. When the smoke and dust cleared, everyone looked at the field and was stunned. Where is Thanos? That one just now, is it really Thanos? Star-Lord pushed Gamora. It should, right? Gamora also couldn't believe it. I've never seen Thanos escape. Thor interrupted her. That's because he didn't touch me. Besides, I beat him away once in Vormir. Everyone was speechless. Stark landed heavily on the ground and stepped out of a deep pit. Mark's 50 nanometers battle armor was covered with scars, and many malfunctions had already occurred inside, so that it was difficult to land smoothly. Damn it. The armor that was just repaired is scrapped again. Tukao, and continued to ask. So, where did Thanos go? Thor rolled his eyes. How would I know? Turning to Strange, who just arrived. Did someone open the portal for him just now? Strange nodded. It's the cultist who was tempted by Mordo, and sent him away at a critical moment. Thor feels a bit sore. It's your boss. It's fine if I didn't wipe my butt clean, but it's always preventing me from killing Thanos. Where's that man? I'm going to interrogate him. Strange shook his head. I'm afraid not. Pointing to a pool of stains nearby. His life has been swallowed by Dormammu. How can there be no price for the power of the dark dimension? Thor froze for a moment. Although he was a little upset, he still accepted the result. Wait. Now the question is, where did Thanos go? Stark interjected. Just let him go and he won't come back. Impossible. Thor categorically denied. His troops have been completely lost, and he has suffered several fatal injuries. The injuries caused by Stormbreaker may not even be smoothed by Time Gem. Forcibly launched under serious injuries gem power, I reckon Thanos would have to use a wheelchair if he lived. After saying this, everyone present felt a lot more relaxed. As the strongest Avenger who defeated Thanos, Gel's words are undoubtedly the most convincing. But the problem is, Thanos took the Time Gem and Mind Gem. Without them I can't revive Vision. Stark distressed. Don't worry. Thor patted him on the shoulder. We can always find him. Infinite gems cannot be destroyed. At most, it can be turned into an atomic state, and there will always be a way to restore it. In fact, even if the gemstones were turned into atoms, Thanos couldn't do it. He only has 2 gems in his hand, so he doesn't have this ability at all. Wanda, the only one who can destroy gems, is by her side. Okay. I'm going to tell you about the trace of the room. Stark left with that sentence. His injuries are also quite serious, and his battle armor is also damaged, so he needs to maintain it as soon as possible. In fact, Thor has some guesses about the whereabouts of Thanos, either the Titan Star, or the unknown planet that was farmed in the original book. The Titan Star is gone, and there is only one Serta left there, and Thanos' current state is to send it away. As for the farming planet, there is no name, so it is hard to find it. Nebula, did Thanos mention to you where to retire when he fulfilled his dream? Nebula. I have been taken out of Holy Place number 2 by you for more than 10 years, do you think I might know? She is a little confused. Forehead, Nebula was only 11 or 12 years old when he was taken away by his Kong Holy Place number 2, and Mie probably hasn't made any retirement plans. However, someone must know. Thanos has been telling me about his grand plan, trying to get me to buy into his philosophy. Gamora said to Thor. I once asked, where will I go after completing this goal? His answer is always only one. Go to that garden. Shingju next to him shrugged his shoulders. I didn't expect that a person like Thanos would arrange a retirement plan for himself. Thor continued to ask. Then do you know where that garden is? Definitely, but I'm not sure he's there. Because he's losing now, he doesn't necessarily give up just like that, and he's probably still doing things elsewhere. Thor said lightly. We will go there and guard. I have a hunch that he will definitely go to that place. Star-Lord asked at this time. Have you really decided to go there? You must know that it is Thanos' home field, which is different from Earth. Moreover, he still has the rough stone in his hand. Then take it back. A cold female voice sounded behind him. Solved? Thor looked at Captain Marvel who appeared at the door and asked. Solved. Supreme intelligence has become history. The dialogue is simple, yet informative. It seems that this time, Carol did a better job and directly pushed to the Kree's lair. Although the Supreme Intelligence is an artificial product, it may be an enhanced version of Ultron in nature, but it is the supreme manager of the entire country, and the living people are only the assistants of the high intelligence. In a sense, the Supreme Intelligence is the de facto god of the Kree, and getting the Supreme Intelligence means that the Kree army is almost finished. I'm afraid that for many years to come, the Kree will lose their ability to do things in the universe. Well, the old enemies of Kree and Skrull return to the same starting line. Thor didn't ask for specifics. News came from the Marauders heading to the unknown planet, and Thanos didn't find any trace of Thanos, and it seems that he hasn't returned yet. Thor didn't say anything either. Unlike the original history, Thanos did not leave as a winner, and he will probably find a way to make trouble elsewhere. But now even if they want to make troubles, they can't make any troubles. Now the Avengers Alliance is not divided, and they no longer fight on their own. In addition, Captain Marvel, the appointed strongest Avenger, returned to Earth ahead of schedule, and Hela, who was a supervillain in his previous life, can be regarded as his own strength. Hela may not necessarily listen to Thor for other things, but she will never be ambiguous about Thanos. With such a lineup, apart from snapping the fingers, even a 6-gem Thanos will be given away. Thor finally told the Marauders to keep an eye on the unnamed planet. In the meantime, please ask some friends in the universe to search for traces of Thanos. A lot of people let them lead the fight against Thanos, but it's still easy to find information. The most typical one is Gao Tianjun. A place like Sakar Arena has an astonishingly large flow of people, and it is easiest to inquire about gossip. Where's Mordo? A few days later, Thor dealt with some aftermath a little bit, and asked straight to the point in the Kamar Taj Hall. Strange shook his head. I can't find any trace of him. He has accepted Dormammu's power, and now his strength is not weaker than mine. Thor silently pointed his middle finger. You should have seen the future, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have handed over the Eye of Agamotto. Since you can see the future direction, how can you not know where Mordo is going? Strange froze for a moment, with a strange expression on his face. You are right, I have seen 14 million futures, and there is only one best ending. Then what? But why do you believe that Modu's current actions are following the most perfect timeline? Ah. Thor understood a little bit. Doctor Strange, as a decent party, will definitely keep the plot moving towards a better future. But this future is obviously not good for the villains, they may not follow this route. Strange continued. Even now, there are still infinite possibilities for Mordo's actions. With my strength, I cooperated with Eye of Agamotto to observe up to 14 million endings, but this is far from all endings. Thor. So, regardless of the original history or the present, there is no concept of 1 in 14 million. You just only get to see 14 million endings, and exactly one of them wins. Oh, by the way, there is one more thing. Strange interrupted Thor's inner complaint. The Lady Chin next to you, her strength is very dangerous. The one on her neck. Strange considered the words for a while. Magic props are not enough to completely suppress her power. It's fine under normal circumstances, but once it explodes, this gathering will lose its effect instantly. Although the universe circle on Chin Gele's neck is invisible, it is visible to the powerful magician. Like Strange or Wanda. Well, a few days ago, Wanda asked strangely, "This beautiful sister, why do you wear a dog collar around your neck?" Then he was hunted down for 3 days and 3 nights. Closer to home, in fact, I also feel that the control effect of Chiankan's circle is not safe. Suppressing the Phoenix Force is really not a good idea, it can only be regarded as a stopgap measure. Definitely from another perspective, Thor's strength has been improving rapidly. When one day he has the ability to help Chin control the Phoenix Force, everything will be solved. Thor, there is a situation. Natalia's message arrives. The looters sent news and found that it was gone. In the vast space, a spaceship is passing through. The spaceship was full of Avengers. If Thor's Millennium Falcon was not big enough, it might not be able to stay there. Passed through one wormhole after another, and finally stopped in the orbit of a beautiful planet. A Marauder spaceship flew towards him, and on the spaceship was an old acquaintance, Yondu. Yondu picked up the call. Is everyone here? Thanos arrived about 12 hours ago, via a donut ship. The specifics are unknown, and I dare not get too close to it. Carol flew out of the spaceship. Then let me investigate first. Missed Infinity War. She felt that she needed to perform well, otherwise she would be a marginal person. A moment later, she flew back. No satellites, no spaceships, no army, no ground defenses of any kind. Just himself. That's enough, Thor whispered. This is a world of beautiful mountains and clear waters, singing birds and fragrant flowers. Trembling, Thanos picked a fruit from the ground and put it in a bag, then picked up the bag, and walked into the room with a limping. Every step is accompanied by heavy panting. His body was full of scars, like an old man in his twilight years, and he could not see the majesty of the former overlord. The former battle armor was hung outside the house, as if it had witnessed his life. Slowly boiled a pot of hot soup, added a handful of seasonings, and suddenly raised his head to look outside the house. Despite being extremely weak, the perception of danger has not weakened, and he quickly raised his hand in front of him. The dazzling light erupting from Captain Marvel was the first to rush in, knocking him to the ground, then quickly rushed forward, climbed up to his neck, and strangled him tightly. Ah! The feeling of suffocation came, and Thanos struggled to get up, and Carol couldn't hold it down for a while. Boom! Stark and Hulk broke through the window at the same time, each grabbing an arm and holding him firmly. 2. Thor walked in slowly with the crowd, glanced at Thanos, and put away his battle axe. Suddenly, I was in a trance. The scene in front of me seemed to overlap with my memory. Similar scenes, different endings. Going forward, he glanced at Thanos' empty right hand, and asked in a deep voice, "Where's the gemstone?" Carol's hand holding his neck loosened slightly. "Answer his question." Thanos said in a hoarse voice, "I don't know." Boom _ Stark shoved him to the ground. "Are you kidding me?" The reason why he ran here before his injury was fully healed was to get back the gems and revive Vision. "I didn't lie to you, I really don't know now." Thor. "Without the power of the 6 gems, you don't have the ability to destroy the original stones. Tell me, where did you put them?" "I don't know if the gems are still there, but they are no longer with me, and I don't remember where I put them." Stark was anxious and at a loss. "Let's look for it, he must be lying." At this time, Gamora spoke. "What he said should be true. My father can do anything, but he never lies." "Thank you, daughter." Thanos said hoarsely, "Maybe I was too hard on you in the past." Thor glanced at Jin, who nodded silently. Thanos didn't deliberately defend her mind from intrusion, and based on what she saw, she really didn't know the whereabouts of the gem. It seems that there is really nothing to ask. And they came here today, not just to get back the gems. Well, we'll find the gem. Anyway, you committed an unforgivable crime against this universe and almost killed countless people. Do you have any objection? Thanos showed an ugly smile. "I admit that everything I have done, but I never think it is a crime. The universe needs balance, and I am a practitioner, so it is destined to be so. Unfortunately, I still failed in the end." Thor didn't bother to argue with him about the 3 views. This kind of thing can't be argued endlessly. Since you have failed, you must have the consciousness of failure. Thanos didn't speak. Gamora spoke. "Let me do it." Thor glanced at her, fell silent for a while, and said, "Forget it. Killing someone who is powerless to resist is quite boring." As he spoke, he waved his hand and strode towards the door. Seeing this, other people around also left, leaving Star-Lord and Gamora behind. Shingju glanced at her with some concern. Even the current Thanos is not something Gamora can resist if he violently injures others. Gamora whispered, "Go out, let me say a few words alone." Shingju hesitated for a while, but still walked out. At this moment, the system task prompt that has not appeared for a long time sounded. "Hey, congratulations on triggering the Thanos-related quest, The Last Supper. Completing the quest will give you a reward. Mission introduction. I am a retired fruit farmer Mie. That day, as usual, I took my small cloth bag and went home to pick the fruit and cook the soup quietly. Who knew that the soup was not cooked yet? Suddenly a group of robbers rushed. They came in and beat me, a widowed old man, overturned my soup, smashed everything in the house, and finally chopped off my head. Mission goal. Let Thanos finish this bowl of soup before he dies, and be a full ghost. Mission reward. Top artificial intelligence 1. Thor. After thinking for a while, he suddenly turned around and said, "In our place, considering humanitarianism, we will try our best to satisfy the last meal of the condemned prisoner before he dies. Therefore, you can eat the last meal." Gamora gave a faintly grateful look. Drip, congratulations to the host for completing the mission, The Last Supper. Get the reward, artificial intelligence, Red Queen. The Red Queen, the supercomputer that appeared in Resident Evil, is tasked with detecting hives. She's programmed to protect humanity and protect umbrella companies. When there was a conflict between the two, she finally chose a compromise. Follow the words of the umbrella to exterminate human beings, and at the same time. Thick Alice goes to sabotage Umbrella's plan. In fact, it was created from Alice's true self, Alicia's childhood. Thor didn't care about her for the time being, because he saw a flash of light above the soul gem in his hand. The eternal deal has finally been reached, Thor. Remember the sacrifice rule of Vomir Star. What I long for most is not only the power of a powerful soul, but the soul of the most loved person in people's hearts. And that green-skinned woman, the person I love the most in my heart, is that purple sweet potato essence. Although it came a bit late, the deal is considered complete. That is to say, you are now fully qualified to master the rough stone, and there is no longer a 10-year limit. Until you die, or choose to give up the rough stone, I will return to Vomir Star and restart a brand new soul for soul transaction. A moment later, Gamora walked out of the hut stealthily, holding a dagger in his hand. The dagger was still stained with blood, and his expression was crazy. It was impossible to tell whether he was crying or laughing. Thor is a little bit emotional. Thanos sacrificed Gamora, and Gamora sacrificed Thanos. Is this the so-called karmic reincarnation? Thinking back carefully, it seems that there is indeed a subtle correction in this world, but it is not obvious. Like Ragnarok happened for another reason, and Asgard became the Titan of destruction. Captain Marvel knew the news of Thanos' invasion early in the morning, but still had to miss the Infinity War. And the sacrifice of Soul Gem finally came from Thanos Gamora, the father and daughter who loved each other and killed each other. Perhaps, it is precisely for this reason that some plots have not changed, so Doctor Strange decided that Iron Man could not die, and decisively handed over the Eye of Agamotto, who had sworn to protect him. Because he feels that the war is not over, at least Iron Man's war is not over, and at a certain point in the future, Iron Man will still be indispensable. Although Thor is curious about what he saw, he also knows that the magician will never spoil it. Well, Dr. Banner and little Spider-Man are still cute, they say everything after a little flickering. Looking at the silent Stark, Thor patted him on the shoulder. Okay, don't be so sad. How many times have I said this? The rough stone has not disappeared, and it can always be found. No, Stark shook his head. I'm thinking, is my thinking right? I've tried my best to design the armor, and I can almost say that I have reached the limit of what I can achieve. However, even so, Thanos still vulnerable in front of you. Thor didn't speak. Stark held out his hand, showing Thor the damage to the wrist armor. You see, the armor I rely on, even with the strongest material I can find, still can't withstand the opponent's attack in high-end battles. There is also vision, even if it uses vibranium, the hardest material on Earth. As a body, it was still easily twisted by Thanos. Thor raised an eyebrow, knowing Stark was telling the truth. The poor rely on variation, and the rich rely on technology. In most cases, arming yourself with technology is a more stable way to become stronger. As long as the technology is achieved, there will always be improvements. But this also has flaws, that is, it is too slow, at least compared to the supervillains in the universe, it lacks enough time to grow. The most important thing is that the basic technology of the Earth is too weak. It is a lottery to produce a genius like Stark. Wakanda technology is indeed powerful, but they mainly revolve around vibranium, which is not the same way as Stark. So, are you going to change your career? Thor narrowly said, I have an easy way. How about I ask Banner for the serum for you, and then use gamma rays to transform you, turning you into a Hulk too? Stark's forehead was full of black lines, and the scene of Hulk smashed appeared in his mind. Why is your imagination so rich? And you always don't think of the best. Are you sure you didn't become disgusted? Stark glared at him. I mean, this time you have contacted a large number of alien allies, and most of their technological level is stronger than ours. At least they have entered the interstellar space era. I think Earth should have more exchanges with them, especially the Nova Corps of Xandar, which is said to be an alliance of many planets. If possible, Earth should also join them. Definitely no problem. Thor nodded. Although in terms of basic technology, Dichu does not appear to be weak. But I can't stand the superhero on the Earth, so wow. Especially as the main battlefield of this wave against Thanos, many potential forces of the Earth have been revealed: Wakanda, Kamar Taj, Avengers. Especially now that the Kree, the longtime enemies of Xandar, are kneeling, joining the Nova Legion will definitely do more good than harm. Speaking of the Kree, Thor suddenly remembered something, and stopped Carol, who was wandering. I want to ask you something. According to what you said, Ronan was just a relatively powerful Kree, but when I saw him a few years ago, I found that he was not immortal at all, and could even withstand the power of the power gem for a short time. Carrollton stopped in his tracks. After some hesitation, she still confessed. At that time, I heard that the Kree secretly collected the corpse of a celestial race. Although it was dead, the energy in it was still terrifying, and Ronan used it to the blood of the gods bathes itself, so it gets strengthening. Thor understood. But that kind of strengthening, should there be any side effects? Otherwise, there must be more than one Ronan doing it. Carol nodded. Yes, so I know that it can greatly strengthen the physical level, but I never considered it. Because once bathed in the blood of the gods, the personality will become irritable, and the IQ will also be significantly reduced. Thor. The case was solved. It turned out that there was a reason why Ronan became a fool. No wonder he was cheated by Xingju's awkward dance. Carol looked at him suspiciously. Hey, don't you have this idea? But I think your physical fitness doesn't need strengthening anymore. In fact, to put it bluntly, it is a trait of intelligence for force, but for ordinary people, the benefits are more. With a body of steel like Thor, even if he takes a bath every day in the blood of the gods, the strengthening of his body can be said to be negligible. Well, Stark is mortal, but his intellect is clearly better than his strength. Stark also shook his head hastily. Forget it, I'd better go and work on my invention. Speaking of this, he suddenly showed a relaxed smile. By the way, Thor, Pepper and I plan to get married next month, you must come to participate. Well, Stark has decided. He wants to hold the most grand wedding in the world. Let everyone witness the former playboy Tony Stark. He has played enough and finds an honest man to marry. Definitely going. I'm an elder anyway, I definitely want to participate. Ah, your father said back then that he was worried that you would be too profane. Now that you are finally married, I am very pleased, uncle. Stark. Go away. Although no gems were found on this trip, at least Thanos was successfully killed. It's an achievement that shakes the universe, whether as the destroyer who slaughtered the universe, the super executioner, or an ordinary retired fruit farmer. Thanos' death is a matter of historical significance. This is the end of an era, and it also represents Thor. The new king of Asgard officially announced his attitude. Anyone who dares to offend the Nine Realm will pay the price, even Thanos. Because of Odin's death, many racial forces who had slightly lowered the level of Asgard in their hearts were marked as bright red in an instant, and the Nine Realms on the universe map became the ultimate danger zone. Although Odin is fierce, he just ran Thanos away. Out of the Nine Realms, Odin didn't even bother to talk to him. But Thor is different. This guy is sure to get revenge. Even if Thanos has gone home to farm, he can catch up with him. And during this period of time, some people have also noticed that the Titan star is gone. Back on Earth, Thor went to visit Ant-Man, who had just been discharged from the hospital. This guy is actually fighting against the unlucky ones, mainly because he has been transformed into a giant for a long time to fight, and his body is a bit too much. Later, Lang Budding was controlled by Mind Gem, and then forced by Mantis Woman to gain hypnotic ability. In fact, the mind is still under control and has not been lifted. Originally, Thanos had gone somewhere, and any magician could cleanse him and remove the control. However, the one who took care of him at the time was Hawkeye, who was relatively weak in the Avengers Alliance. After being controlled by Loki, he was physically purified by Thor on the space carrier. Afterwards, he always thought that this was the most efficient way to remove mind control. The fact is the same, so the claws extended to Ant-Man. Scott Lang, who was not injured, lay in the hospital for half a month, and rushed to find Dr. Pym as soon as he was discharged from the hospital. He promised to help Dr. Pym find a wife. Well, it should be to find Dr. Pym's wife, who was trapped in the Prince's space many years ago, Wasp. The plan had already started, but the Thanos invasion was more important, so it was delayed. As soon as the matter here was settled, he hurried back. The plot of Ant-Man 2 Inches Thor has no nature to intervene. Although this bug couple is quite useful on the battlefield. Mainly, mortals fight, and gods are too lazy to intervene. Just like Thor has a good impression of little Spider-Man, but he is not interested in helping him with Vulture. Lose share. Besides, the current Ant-Man is not bound by the Sokovia Act, so maybe he can seek help from other Avengers, and there will be no surprises. The most important thing is, don't worry about entering the quantum space and not getting out. Back at the manor, Thor muttered in his heart, the Red Queen. A little girl who looked very cute appeared in front of her, with a strange voice. Boss, follow your orders. Thor glanced at her and asked, I think I should call you Alice, right? After all, you were her childhood. The Red Queen glanced at him suspiciously, wondering how Thor would know her origin, nodded and said, Yes, boss. Please enter the first program criterion. The Red Queen summoned by the system has not joined any programs yet. Thor thought for a while, and joined a very shameless procedure protecting all women who have more than a friend relationship with Thor. Red Queen. Time is graceful, time flies, and 5 years have passed by in a flash. For some Asgardians with long lives, 5 years is like a nap, and it passed before they even realized it. Even on Earth, 5 years is neither short nor long. In the past 5 years, the world has undergone unprecedented changes. Starting from the Great War in New York, Star Wars has officially changed from a movie to a reality, heralding the arrival of a new era. After the Ultron crisis, the heroic Civil War, the World War launched by Wakanda, until the invasion of Thanos, the various big worlds hardly stopped, and people saw the other side of the world for the first time. Superhero, from being vigilant and distrusted, to being closely related to everyone. Just like Mr. Peter Parker, a good neighbor who everyone in New York knows now, Spider-Man is very popular now, and almost competes with Thor. The only difference is that little Spider-Man's fans are all children, and middle-aged aunts, because he doesn't show his face. In fact, many of the people that little Spider-Man dealt with were Jin Guang's men's men. In fact, this loss is just a drizzle for Jin Bin. But under normal circumstances, even for the sake of face, Jin Bing would definitely mess with him. But after Thor greeted him, Jin Bin also let him go. Anyway, those who did something were caught on the cobweb horse track, and those who fell into the hands of a high school student are all trash, dead. Thanos' death is like a dividing line. In the 5 years after Infinity War, the Earth seemed to have returned to the past and became quiet again. Those frequent world crises seemed to have disappeared. In fact, the main reason is that Thanos is kneeling, and most people really dare not go to the Earth. There are races and forces in the universe that ability ran to the Earth to cause trouble, and none of them are fools. What's more, the Earth has also joined the alliance of the Nova Corps. As for some small problems in the local area, after experiencing the previous major crises, they are not a big deal. S.H.I.E.L.D. led by Phil Coulson can take care of that. Moreover, Stark has not been idle in recent years. Although Iron Man has been out of sight for a long time, it's because there is nothing that requires him to do anything. In the past few years, he has been working on a set of UAV systems covering the whole world. At first glance, it looks very similar to the previous Insights project. The biggest difference is that this system will not conclude that the other party is guilty because of what it did not do, which is fundamentally different from the Insight plan. In a sense, this is more like a reinforcement army that can support the whole world at any time. Even Steve, who is in the position of president, agrees with this plan. If you come to master this power, I can approve it, but you must promise that you will not hand it over to anyone. Stark definitely agreed. In the past few years, the reason why the Earth has been so peaceful is that this army of drones has played a big role, and some small forces that don't know the heights of the sky and the depths of the Earth are all handled by them. The UAV system is still being improved and upgraded, and not many people know about it. In the eyes of many people, Stark is now retired. He has become a retired rich man from Iron Man, lived a semi-reclusive life in a forest hut, and has a daughter, Morgan Stark. When the Ultron incident happened, Stark once came to Hawkeye's house as a guest. At that time, he once said that maybe Pepper should also get such a farm, and now he has done it. In fact, the long-term peace made Iron Man really want to retire at this time, wanting to grow up with Morgan. Definitely, if one day the world really needs him again, he is absolutely incumbent. As Pepper said, "In my life, I may never be able to persuade you." The previous research on steel armor was not abandoned either, but the site was moved from the city to the suburbs. He is always ready. In addition, he has not given up on the search for the missing 2 infinite gems. Another married couple in the Avengers Alliance is Bruce Banner and Princess Shuri of Wakanda. Banner can be regarded as Wakanda's first foreign prince ever. Well, with this golden thigh, Dr. Banner's worth has surpassed that of Stark, even vibranium is short of diamonds. Whether it is Banner or Princess Surui, they are all extreme workaholics. Once they are involved in scientific research, they will forget to eat and sleep. They are not like Stark, work is work, life is life. That is to say, these two people were made into a team, and ordinary people really couldn't stand them. Thor, this is the end. Inside Holy Place, New York, Strange speaks to Thor. Thor frowned. Where is the ending? The world is fine now, who is full and goes back to the past to make trouble? In fact, even if you go back to the past, there will be no problem. The nebula in this life has not been transformed, so it will not become a leading party. Doctor Strange smiled and said nothing. Thor suddenly wants to beat him up. This death god stick is half intentional every time he speaks. Thinking about it, Strange had a very bad personality when he was a doctor. After a long time, he said, maybe people, at any time. The longest, it will not exceed half a year. So, there will be 10 more Avengers gatherings. Thor looked relaxed. In fact, he was not very worried, because the current overall strength of the Avengers is several times stronger than that of 2022 in the original history, and they will not be caught off guard when they are prepared. In the original history, the reason why Stark had to be sacrificed in the end was actually the result of the superposition of many reasons. Including Thor who ate fat, Wanda who was interrupted from casting spells, Doctor Strange who controlled the water, and Captain Marvel who joined the group too late. Many superheroes with the ability to withstand Thanos were disconnected due to various reasons, which gave them an opportunity to destroy the room. These problems can be avoided completely. Moreover, Thanos in 2017 was not his opponent, and Thanos in 2014 came as a gift. After becoming the king of Asgard, Thor's strength is the same as Hela's, growing slowly every moment. No one knows how strong he is now except himself. Leaving Kamar Taj, Thor walked through the space gate and went home. Although it is not taken too seriously, some things still need to be arranged in advance. After 5 years of reconstruction, Asgard has already recovered as before, and the infrastructure ability of the people of God's domain is no worse than that of Earth. However, the home that Thor refers to is not Asgard, but an island in northern Norway. 5 years ago, the war with Thanos almost destroyed half of New York, and countless buildings were razed to the ground, including Thor's original manor. Considering that New York has too many disasters, Thor chose another place when rebuilding. Originally, New Asgard was a small fishing village where Asgard refugees lived. In this life, Asgard only destroyed the above-ground buildings, and under the dual effects of advanced technology and magic, it quickly completed the reconstruction, and the people did not need to leave the homeland where they lived in the era. Back then in northern Norway, the sea that Odin looked at last did not become the home of the Germans in Asgard, but became Thor's own home. 5 years ago, Thor used the energy of the power gem and tesseract to pull a meteorite directly from space and landed on the sea, creating a small island and building his castle on the island, named New Asgard. Well, in theory, the specific ownership of the newly discovered islands on the high seas should belong to the first to discover and occupy them. The specifics depend on the disputes between the parties. And there's no fist harder than Thor's in the entire galaxy. Besides, the old superpower lighthouse state and the new superpower Wakanda expressed their support at the same time, and this island officially belongs to Thor. Thor brought everyone in the manor to the island. Thor lives here most of the time. Asgard is good, but the place is really too small. Well, unlike the manor, this island is not open to the public. Except for Thor, no male creature can come within 10 miles. Here, Thor is almost like a king. Well, I almost forgot, it was originally the king. Although he inherited the throne of king, Thor is the shopkeeper most of the time, and he typically wants to wear his crown and does not bear the burden. There is Loki internally, and Hela externally. Since then, the king has not come to court early. In a normal country, this kind of stupid king is already finished, but as long as Thor is the best at fighting, then the world will be peaceful. When Loki is not doing anything, his abilities are still very strong. As for Hela, Hela hasn't given up on her ambitions, never has. However, she also knows that she is not Thor's opponent, and it is difficult to match Thor in terms of growth potential. As for intrigue, she is not good at it, otherwise she would not have been stabbed in the back by Odin back then and thrown herself into the street. Besides, regardless of the royal power, the relationship between the siblings is actually very good, especially when performing mixed doubles against Loki. The cooperation is tacit than anyone else. What really troubled Thor was that Hela came up with a big trick to save the country. The specific route is hard to say. It is similar to the parallel universe described by a certain Marvel comic that Thor read in his previous life, New Ultimate Alliance. Well, Hela has her own room in the castle of New Asgard, room number 404. This mysterious number represents a kind of taboo that must not be violated, which means that one surnamed people are doomed. Ah bah, Thor enters, doomed. Welcome back, master. A crisp female voice sounded. This is the voice of the Red Queen. The super artificial intelligence of Tang Umbrella Company is regarded by Thor as the steward of the New Asgard, and she manages the island in a unified manner. When foreign enemies invade, the defense facilities on the island will launch an attack immediately, giving the opponent a devastating blow in an instant. In addition, the Red Queen can invade and forcibly take over any network data, which is stronger than Ultron to some extent. The phantom of a light red girl appeared in front of Thor, except that it had no entity, it was already very close to a normal person. Moreover, for some reason, the essence of the Red Queen summoned to this world seems to have undergone some changes. It is no longer a static pattern, but can grow like a normal person. She was a little girl 5 years ago, but now she is a girl of 17 or 18. For the Red Queen, Stark is envious to death. He can't imagine how Thor came up with this real artificial intelligence anyway. In contrast, my Miss Friday doesn't seem so fragrant. Did nothing happen at home while I was away? Everything is normal. But Miss Natalia brought back a few teenage children, saying that they are worth cultivating. A teenage child? You are only a teen yourself, talking so old-fashioned. Thor made a silent complaint in his heart.